Hello there, friends. It's Starry Wisdom Sunday. Thank you for joining me. We're here to talk about Beric Dondarrion. And of course, if you have been listening to Mythical Astronomy for any length of time, you've heard me talk about Beric Dondarrion before. However, some of you guys are new, might not know what's up, and the Beric lore is scattered throughout different podcast series, several episodes deep into the Weirwood Compendium and places like that, Sacred Order of Green Zombies. So today we're going to talk just about Beric. And oh my goodness, my tree isn't plugged in. Let me just fix that. Oh, that's so much more festive. That's better. All right. Hey, everyone. So I did pick Beric because it's been a crazy week. It's been a New Year's week. Been running around, doing different things, having live streams. 4-hour live stream on Friday. So I did pick somebody that was, I didn't have to do a ton of, I mean, I could talk about Beric for 3 hours off the top of my head with no notes. I did make notes though, just to help me not go for 3 hours. But Beric is really interesting because he basically proves all of my theories are right indisputably. And that's why I like him. It makes me, I'm biased for that reason. Not really. He actually does. He does really touch on a lot of different theories, from the Green Zombies to Knights, King and Queen stuff to the Great Empire of the Dawn, because he has Dane connections. So there's going to be lots and lots of symbolism and theory talk. But of course, let's start with the man himself, Beric Dondarrion. And I do want to give a shout out real quick. Is it Richard? Who's the name of? Is it Richard Dormer or Richard? The guy that the actor that plays Beric on the show. I really like him. He's pretty awesome. Let me just straighten this out here. There we go. They did a little different thing with him on the show, but for the most part, I feel like he captures the spirit of the character. Beric is a brave character. In death, he's protecting the people and all that stuff. So, yeah, Natalie's cousin. I don't think they're actually cousins, but isn't that the right name, though? Do I have that right? In any case, he is cool. I'd like him. I also liked seeing Beric obviously go up with, Jon Snow to go north of the wall on there. The White Hunt was stupid, but I do think there'll be a last hero. Yeah, Richard Dormer. Okay, I have confirmation. Oh, he is. Are they really cousins? Dormer. No, it is Dormer. Okay. Yeah, I always start rumors on live streams. I have no idea if they're actually cousins. I just think they have the same last name, but maybe someone can tell me. In any case, liked the portrayal. Beric is cool. So all around a good character. I liked the, like I said, the White Hunt premise was kind of dumb, but I do think we will get some sort of echo of the last hero going north with his band of a dozen people. And I definitely thought the show was riffing on that idea. So even the Beric is done in the books, as far as we know. But I do like what they did with him in the show. So that being said, we're going to do a big, gnarly quote reading. This might be an entire chapter, but this is going to be the Beric fight with the Hound. It's also the introduction of Undead Beric, so it kind of has the whole shebang there. And, yeah. Not related, Wikipedia says. Google. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. And by the way, if you want to support the program, you can, of course, use the paypal.me mythical astronomy link. I get to keep 100% of the proceeds for that, so that's better for larger donations if you're feeling generous. And thank you, guys. Lots of generous people here this holiday season, making my Christmas a little nicer. Appreciate that. Or, of course, you can use the super chat function embedded in YouTube, which is fun and easy, especially for smaller ones. It highlights your name and question, so I'll see it. By the way, if you do the paypal.me, you can also send in a question. There's a little comments field. I check those several times a stream, and we'll answer those questions as well. So there you go. And here's the full link from my super mod, Mr. Karshnak. But in any case, we're just about to start here with this quote reading. It is going to be a hot minute, so I wanted to say hi first. But here we go with the late, great Beric Dondarrion. And I will be drinking this Red Bull as we go. I am not yet powered by Relore. I'm waiting for my Relore power to kick in still. Late night. Yeah, I'm just. Oh, that was a good one. Okay. All right. This is actually the beginning of an Arya chapter from A Storm of Swords. It says, her eyes had grown accustomed to the blackness. When Harwin pulled the hood off her head, the ruddy glare inside the hollow hill made Arya blink like some stupid owl. A huge fire pit had been dug in the center of the earthen floor, and its flames rose swirling and crackling towards the smoke-stained ceiling. George does love his alliteration. The walls were equal parts stone and soil, with huge white roots twisting through them like 1,000 slow, pale snakes. People were emerging from between those roots as she watched, edging out from the shadows for a look at the captives, stepping from the mouths of pitch-black tunnels, popping out of crannies and crevices on all sides. In one place on the far side of the fire, the roots formed a kind of stairway up. Stairway up to a hollow in the earth where a man sat almost lost in the tangle of weirwood. Good luck, Colts, on behalf of Nathan. Thanks, Nathan. I appreciate that. Lem unhooded Gendry. What is this place? He asked. An old place, deep and secret, a refuge where neither wolves nor lions come prowling. Neither wolves nor lions. Arya's skin prickled. She remembered the dream she'd had and the taste of blood when she tore the man's arm from his shoulder. And that's a reference to Arya, by the way, having a wolf dream as they were pursued from Harrenhal. It's a little bit subtle, but it's her first wolf dream that she has, and she's essentially jumping in Nymeria's skin and tearing apart some of the bloody mummers. Not the bloody mummers, but some of the people from Harrenhal. They might have been mummers. I can't remember who they were, but whoever they were that was pursuing Arya, they got messed up by Nymeria, and that was Arya's first wolf dream action. So that's what she's thinking about here. It says, biggest the fire was, the cave was bigger. It was hard to tell where it began and where it ended. The tunnel mouths might have been 2 feet deep or gone on 2 miles. Arya saw men and women and little children. All of them watched her warily. Greenbeard said, "Here's the wizards, skinny squirrel. You'll get your answers now." He pointed towards the fire where Tom Sevenstring stood talking to a tall, thin man with oddments of old armor buckled on over his ratty pink robes. That can't be Thoros of Myr. Arya remembered the Red Priest as fat, with a smooth face and a shiny bald head. This man had a droopy face and a head full of shaggy gray hair. Something Tom said made him look at her, and Arya thought he was about to come over to her. Only then the Mad Huntsman appeared, shoving his captive down into the light, and she and Gendry were forgotten. The huntsman had turned out to be a stocky man in patched tan leathers, balding and weak-chinned and quarrelsome. At Stony Sept, she had thought Lem and Greenbeard might be torn to pieces when they faced him at the crow cages to claim his captive for the Lightning Lord. The hounds had been all around them, sniffing and snarling, but Thomas Evans soothed them with his playing. Tansy marched across the square with her apron full of bones and fatty mutton, and Lem pointed out Angwai in the brothel window, standing with an arrow notched. The Mad Huntsman had cursed them all for lickspittles, but finally he had agreed to take his prize to Lord Beric for judgment. They had bound his wrists with hempen rope, strung a noose about his neck, and pulled a sack down over his head. But even so, there was danger in the man. Arya could feel it across the cave. Thoros, if that was Thoros, met captor and captive halfway to the fire. "How did you take him?" the priest asked. "The dogs caught the scent. You're sleeping off a drunk under a willow tree, if you believe it. Betrayed by his own kind." Thoros turned to his prisoner and yanked the hood off. "Welcome to our humble hall, dog. It's not so grand as Robert's throne room, but the company is better." The shifting flames painted Sandor Clegane's burned face with orange shadows, so he looked even more terrible than he did in daylight. When he pulled at the rope that bound his wrists, flakes of dry blood fell off. The hound's mouth twitched. "I know you," he said to Thoros. "You did. In melees, you'd curse my flaming sword, though thrice I overthrew you with it." "Thoros of Myr, you used to shave your head." "To betoken a humble heart, but in truth, my heart was vain. Besides, I lost my razor in the woods." The priest slapped his belly. "I am less than I was, but more. A year in the wild will melt the flesh off a man. Would that I could find a tailor to take in my skin. I might look young again, and pretty maids would shower me with kisses." "Only the blind ones, priest." The outlaws hooted, none so loud as Thoros. "Just so. Yet I am not the false priest you knew. The Lord of Light has woken in my heart. Many powers long asleep are waking, and there are forces moving in the land. I have seen them in my flames. The Hound was unimpressed. Bugger your flames. And you as well. He looked around at the others. You keep queer company for a holy man. These are my brothers, Thoros said simply. Lemoncloak pushed forward. He and Greenbeard were the only men there tall enough to look the Hound in the eye. Be careful how you bark, dog. We hold your life in our hands. Best wipe the shit off your fingers, then, the Hound laughed. How long have you been hiding in this hole? Angstyboy the archer bristled at the suggestion of cowardice. Ask the goat if we've hidden, Hound. Ask your brother. Ask the Lord of Leeches. We've bloodied them all. Your lot. Don't make me laugh. You look more like swineherds than soldiers. Some of us was swineherds, said a short man. Arya did not know. Some was tanners or singers or masons, but that was before the war come. When we left King's Landing, we were men of Winterfell, and men of Derry, and men of Blackhaven, Mallory men and wild men. We were knights and squires and men-at-arms, lords and commoners, bound together only by our purpose. The voice came from the man seated amongst the weirwood roots, halfway up the wall. 60 of us set out to bring the king's justice to your brother. The speaker was descending the tangle of steps toward the floor. 60 brave men and true, led by a fool in starry cloak. A scarecrow of a man. He wore a ragged black cloak speckled with stars and an iron breastplate dinted by 100 battles. A thicket of red gold hair hid most of his face, save for a bald spot above his left ear where his head had been smashed in. More than 80 of our company are dead now, but others have taken up the swords that fell from their hands. When he reached the floor, the outlaws moved aside to let him pass. One of his eyes was gone, Arya said, the flesh about the sockets scarred and puckered, and he had a dark black ring all around his neck. With their help, we fight on as best we can, for Robert and the realm. Robert? Rasped Sandor Clegane, incredulous. Ned Stark sent us out, said Podhelm to Jack Be Lucky, but he was sitting the Iron Throne when he gave us our commands, so we were never truly his men, but Robert's. Robert is the king of the worms now. Is that why you're down on the earth, to keep his court for him? The king is dead, the Scarecrow Knight admitted, but we are still king's men, though the royal banner we bore was lost at Mummer's Ford when your brother's butchers fell upon us. He touched his breast with a fist. Robert is slain, but his realm remains, and we defend her. Her? The Hound snorted. Is she your mother, Dondarrion, or your whore? Dondarrion? Beric Dondarrion had been handsome. Sansa's friend Jane had fallen in love with him. Even Jane Poole was not so blind as to think this man was fair. Yet when Arya looked at him again, she saw it. The remains of a forked purple lightning bolt on the cracked enamel of his breastplate. Rocks and trees and rivers, that's what your realm was made of, the Hound was saying. Do the rocks need defending? Robert wouldn't have thought so. If he couldn't fuck it, fight it, or drink it, it bored him, and so would you, you brave companions. Outrage swept the hollow hill. Call us that name again, dog, and you'll swallow that tongue. Lem drew his longsword. The Hound stared at the blade with contempt. Here's a brave man bearing steel on a bound captive. Untie me, why don't you? We'll see how brave you are then. He glanced at the mad huntsman behind him. How about you? Or did you leave all your courage in your kennels? No, but I should have left you in a crow cage. The huntsman drew a knife. I might still. The Hound laughed in his face. We are brothers here, Thoros of Myr declared. Holy brothers, sworn to the realm, to our God, and to each other. The Brotherhood without banners, Tom Sevenstrings plucked a string. The Knights of the Hollow Hill. Knights? Clegane made the word a sneer. Dondarrion's a knight, but the rest of you are the sorriest lot of outlaws and broken men I've ever seen. I shit better men than you. Any knight can make a knight, said the scarecrow that was Beric Dondarrion, and every man you see before you has felt a sword upon his shoulder. We are the Forgotten Fellowship. Send me on my way, and I'll forget you too, Clegane rasped. But if you mean to murder me, then bloody well get on with it. You took my sword, my horse, and my gold, so take my life and be done with it. But spare me this pious bleeding. You will die soon enough, dog, promised Thoros. But it shan't be murder, only justice. Aye, said the mad huntsman, and a kinder fate than you deserve for all your kind have done. Lions, you call yourselves. At Sharer, on the Mummers Ford, girls of 6 and 7 years were raped, and babes still on the breast were cut in two while their mothers watched. No lion ever killed so cruel. I wasn't at Sharer, nor the Mummers Ford, the Hound told him. Lay your dead children at some other door. Thoros answered him. Do you deny that House Clegane was built upon dead children? I saw them lay Prince Aegon and Princess Rhaenys before the Iron Throne. By rights, your arms should bear 2 bloody infants in place of those ugly dogs. The Hound's mouth twitched. Do you take me for my brother? Is being born Clegane a crime? Murder is a crime. Who did I murder? Lord Lothar Mallory and Sir Gladden Wild, said Harwin. My brothers, Lister and Lennox, declared Jack Be Lucky. Goodman Beck and Mudge, the miller's son, from Donaldwood, an old woman called from the shadows. Merriman's widow, who loves so sweet, added Greenbeard. Them Septons at Sludgy Pond. They took our jobs! Sir Audrey Charlton, his squire Lucas Root, every man, woman, and child in Fieldstone and Mousedown Mill. Lord and Lady Deddings, that was so rich. Tom Sevenstrings took up the count. Alan of Winterfell, Joth Quickbow, Little Matt and his sister Randa, Anvil Ryn, Sir Ormond, Sir Dudley, Pate of Moray, Pate of Lancewood, Old Pate, and Pate of Shermer's Grove, Blind Will the Whittler, Goodwife Mary, Mary the Whore, Becca the Baker, Sir Raymond Derry, Lord Derry, and young Lord Derry, the Bastard of Bracken, Fletcher Will, Harsley, Goodwife Nola. Enough! The Hound's face was tight with anger. You're making noise. These names mean nothing. Who are they? People, said Lord Beric. People great and small, young and old, good people and bad people, who died on the points of Lannister spears, or saw their bellies opened by Lannister swords. It wasn't my sword in their bellies. Any man who says it was is a bloody liar. You serve the Lannisters of Casterly Rock, said Thoros. Once. Me and thousands more. Is each of us guilty of the crimes of the others? Clegane spat. Might be you are knights after all. You lie like knights. Maybe you murder like knights. Lem and Jack Be Lucky began to shout at him, but Dondarrion raised a hand for silence. Say what you mean, Clegane. Oh, yes, Beric is a lot like Robin Hood. George has a couple of Robin Hood jokes in the story. This is one of them. A knight's a sword with a horse. The rest, the vows and the sacred oils and the ladies' favors, there are silk ribbons tied round the sword. Maybe the sword's prettier with the ribbons hanging off, but it will kill you just as dead. Well, bugger your ribbons and shove your swords up your arses. I'm the same as you, but the only difference is I don't lie about what I am. So kill me, but don't call me a murderer while you stand there telling each other that your shit don't stink. You hear me? Arya squirted past Greenbeard so fast he never saw her. You are a murderer, she screamed. You killed Micah. Don't say you never did. You murdered him. The Hound stared at her with no flicker of recognition. And who was this Micah boy? I'm not a boy, but Micah was. He was a butcher's boy, and you killed him. Jory said you cut him near in half, and he never even had a sword. She could feel them looking at her now, the women and the children and the men who called themselves the Knights of the Hollow Hill. Who's this now? Someone asked. The Hound answered, 7 hells. The little sister. The brat who tossed Joff's pretty sword in the river. He gave a bark of laughter. Don't you know you're dead? No, you're dead, she threw back at him. Everyone's dead in the Weirwood Cave. Harwin took her arm to draw her back at Lord Beric. Harwin took her arm to draw her back, as Lord Beric said, the girl has named you a murderer. Do you deny killing this butcher's boy, Micah? The big man shrugged. I was Joffrey's sworn shield. The butcher's boy attacked a prince of the blood. That's a lie, Arya squirmed in Harwin's grip. It was me. I hit Joffrey and threw Lion's Paw in the river. Micah just ran away, like I told him. I think it's Lion's Tooth, by the way. I like how Arya gets the name of the sword wrong. It's kind of cute. Did you see the boy attack Prince Joffrey? Lord Beric Dondarrion asked the Hound. I heard it from his royal lips. It's not my place to question princes. Clegane jerked his hands toward Arya. This one's own sister told the same tale when she stood before your precious Robert. Sansa's just a liar, Arya said. furious at her sister all over again. It wasn't like that. Wasn't like she said. It wasn't. Thoros drew Lord Beric aside. The two men stood talking in low whispers while Arya seethed. They have to kill him. I prayed for him to die hundreds and hundreds of times. Yeah, that's totally normal. Beric Dondarrion turned back to the Hound. You stand accused of murder, but no one here knows the truth or falsehood of the charge, so it is not for us to judge you. Only the Lord of Light may do that now. I sentence you to trial by battle. The Hound frowned suspiciously as if he did not trust his ears. Are you a fool or a madman? Neither. I am just Lord. I am a just Lord. Prove your innocence with the blade, and you shall be free to go. No, Arya cried before Harwin covered her mouth. No, they can't. He'll go free. The Hound was deadly with the sword. Everyone knew that. He'll laugh at them, she thought. And so he did. A long, rasping laugh that echoed off the cave walls. A laugh choking with contempt. 1 second, guys. A little cobweb in there from last night. Okay, here we go. The Hound did laugh, a rasping laugh that echoed off the cave walls, a laugh choking with contempt. So who will it be? He looked at Lemoncloak, the brave man in the piss-yellow cloak. No. How about you, huntsman? You kicked dogs before. Try me. He saw Greenbeard. You're big enough, Tyrosh. Step forward. Or do you mean to make the little girl fight me herself? He laughed again. Come on, who wants to die? It's me you'll face, said Lord Beric Dondarrion. Arya remembered the tales. He can't be killed, she thought, hoping against hope. The mad huntsman sliced apart the ropes that bound Sandor Clegane's hands together. I'll need sword and armor. The Hound rubbed a torn wrist. Sword you shall have, declared Lord Beric, but your innocence must be your armor. Clegane's mouth twitched. My innocence against your breastplate, is that the way of it? Ned, help me remove my breastplate. Arya got goosebumps when Lord Beric said her father's name, but this Ned was only a boy, a fair-haired squire, no more than 10 or 12. He stepped up quickly to undo the clasps that fastened the battered steel around the Marcher Lord. The quilting beneath was rotten with age and sweat, and fell away when the metal was pulled loose. Gendry sucked in his breath. Mother have mercy. Lord Beric's ribs were outlined starkly beneath his skin. A puckered crater scarred his breast just above his left nipple, and when he turned to call for sword and shield, Arya saw a matching scar upon his back. The lance went through him. The Hound had seen it too. Is he scared? Arya wanted him to be scared before he died, as scared as Micah must have been. Ned fetched Lord Beric his sword belt and a long black surcoat. It was meant to be worn over armor, so it draped his body loosely, but across it crackled the forked purple lightning of his house. He unsheathed his sword and gave the belt back to his squire. Oh, I totally need to pull up a Beric picture while we finish this. Let me do that. I've got a bunch of Beric art. Get ready to go. This is pretty much the scene that everyone draws, of course. No mystery there. Let me just do a little share screen. Share McScreenerman. There we go. This is the one I used on the cover. This is by Angstyboy. I'll leave this up for a hot second. If I can just turn the brightness up a little. There we go. Perfect. And I'll do this so I'm a little bigger. Oh, now Beric is very tiny. Okay. Well, we'll both be tiny. All right, let me find, I'll tell you what. That's better. Okay, there we go. This is Michael Comark, by the way, this picture. Okay, so where are we? Lord Beric, the honorary Stark, ribs outlined starkly. We'll get back to that. Ned fetched Lord Beric his sword belt and a long black sword. Okay, yeah, he unsheathed his sword and gave the belt back to his squire. Thoros brought the Hound his sword belt. Does a dog have honor? The priest asked. Lest you think to cut your way free of here or seize some child for a hostage. Angwai, Dennet, Kyle, feather him at the first sign of treachery. Only when the three bowmen had notched their shafts did Thoros hand Clegane the belt. The Hound ripped the sword free and threw away the scabbard. The mad huntsman gave him his oaken shield, all studded with iron and painted yellow, the 3 black dogs of Clegane emblazoned upon it. Pardon me. Let's see here. You didn't hear that burp. It never happened. I retract my pardon me. Okay, so the Hound ripped the sword free, threw away the scabbard. The boy Ned helped Lord Beric with his own shield, so hacked and battered that the purple lightning and the scatter of stars upon it had almost been obliterated. Obliterating stars would do a thing like that. When the Hound made a step forward toward his foe, Thoros of Myr stopped him. First we pray. He turned toward the fire and lifted his arms. Lord of Light, look down upon us. All around the cave, the Brotherhood without banners lifted their own voices in response. Lord of Light, defend us. Lord of Light, protect us in your darkness. Lord of Light, shine your face upon us. Light your flame amongst us, R'hllor, said the Red Priest. Show us the truth or falseness of this man. Strike him down if he is guilty, and give strength to his sword if he is true. Lord of Light, give us wisdom. For the night is dark, the others chanted. Harwin and Angwai loud as all the rest. And full of terrors. Awful lot of others wordplay here, guys, by the way. We'll have to figure out what that means. This cave is dark too, said the Hound, but I'm the terror here. I hope your god's a sweet one, Dondarrion. You're going to meet him shortly. Unsmiling, Lord Beric laid the edge of his long sword against the palm of his left hand. Whoosh! And drew it slowly down. Oh, I'm sorry, not whoosh. Drew it slowly. Not whoosh. More like a... Blood ran down from the gash he made and washed over the steel. And then the sword took fire. Okay, that's enough. Enough sound effects. I don't think my sound effects are on point today. All right, let's see here. Sword takes fire. It says... Arya heard Gendry whisper a prayer. Burn in 7 hells, the Hound cursed. You and Thoros too. He threw a glance at the Red Priest. When I'm done with him, you'll be next, Myr. Every word you say proclaims your guilt, dog, answered Thoros, while Lemon, Greenbeard, and Jack Be Lucky shouted threats and curses. Lord Beric himself waited silent, calm as still water, his shield on his left arm and his sword burning in his right hand. Kill him, Arya thought. Please, you have to kill him. Lit from below, his face was a death mask, his missing eye a red and angry wound. The sword was aflame from point to crossguard, but Dondarrion seemed not to feel the heat. He stood so still he might have been carved of stone. Sorry, guys, just having a hard time clearing my throat this morning. But when the Hound charged him, he moved fast enough. The flaming sword leapt up to meet the cold one, long streamers of fire trailing in its wake, like the ribbons the Hound had spoken of. Steel rang on steel. No sooner was his first slash blocked than Clegane made another, but this time Lord Beric's shield got in the way, and wood chips flew from the force of the blow. Hard and fast the cuts came, from low and high, from right and left, and each one Dondarrion blocked. The flames swirled around his sword and left red and yellow ghosts to mark its passage. Each move Lord Beric made fanned them and made them burn the brighter, until it seemed as though the Lightning Lord stood within a cage of fire. Is it wildfire? Arya asked Gendry. No, this is different. This is magic? She finished as the Hound edged back. Now it was Lord Beric attacking, filling the air with ropes of fire, driving the bigger man back on his heels. Clegane caught one blow high on his shield, and a painted dog lost a head. He countercut, and Dondarrion interposed his own shield and launched a fiery backslash. The Outlaw Brotherhood shouted on their leader. He's yours, Arya heard, and at him, at him. The Hound parried a cut at his head, grimacing as the heat of the flames beat against his face. He grunted and cursed and reeled away. Lord Beric gave him no respite. Hard on the big man's heels he followed, his arm never still. The swords clashed and sprang apart and clashed again. Splinters flew from the lightning shield, while swirling flames kissed the dogs once, twice, and thrice. The Hound moved to his right, but Dondarrion blocked him with a quick sidestep and drove him back the other way, toward the sullen red blaze of the fire pit. Clegane gave ground until he felt the heat at his back. A quick glance over his shoulder showed what was behind him, and almost cost him his head when Lord Beric attacked anew. Arya could see the whites of Sandor Clegane's eyes as he bowled his way forward again. 3 steps up and 2 back, A move to the left that Lord Beric blocked. 2 more forward and 1 back. Clang and clang. And the big oaken shields took blow after blow after blow. The Hound's lank, dark hair was plastered to his brow in a sheen of sweat. Wine sweat, Arya thought, remembering that he'd been taken drunk. She thought she could see the beginnings of fear wake in his eyes. He's going to lose, she told herself, exulting, as Lord Beric's flaming sword whirled and slashed. In one wild flurry, the Lightning Lord took back all the ground the Hound had gained, sending Clegane staggering to the very edge of the fire pit once more. He is. He's going to die. She stood on her toes for a better look. Bloody bastard! The Hound screamed as he felt the fire licking against the back of his thighs. He charged, swinging the heavy sword harder and harder, trying to smash the smaller man down with brute force, to break blade or shield or arm. But the flames of Dondarrion's parries snapped at his eyes, and when the Hound jerked away from them, his foot went out from under him, and he staggered to one knee. At once Lord Beric closed, his downcut screaming through the air, trailing pennons of fire. Panting from exertion, Clegane jerked his shield up over his head just in time, and the cave rang with a loud crack of splintering oak. His shield is afire, Gendry said in a hushed voice. His shield is afire, Gendry said in a hushed voice. Arya saw it in the same instant. The flames had spread across the chipped yellow paint, and the 3 black dogs were engulfed. Sandor Clegane had fought his way back to his feet with a reckless counterattack. Not until Lord Beric retreated a pace did the Hound seem to realize that the fire had roared so near his face was his own shield, burning. The shout of revulsion, he hacked down savagely on the broken oak, completing its destruction. The shield shattered, one piece of it spinning away, still afire, while the other clung stubbornly to his forearm. His efforts to free himself only fanned the flames. His sleeve caught, and now his whole left arm was ablaze. "Finish him! Finish him!" Greenbeard urged Lord Beric, and other voices took up the chant of "Guilty!" Arya shouted with the rest, "Guilty! Guilty! Kill him! Guilty!" Smooth as summer silk, Lord Beric slid close to make an end of the man before him. The Hound gave a rasping scream, raised his sword in both hands, and brought it crashing down with all his strength. Lord Beric blocked the cut easily. "No!" Arya shrieked, but the burning sword snapped in two, and the Hound's cold steel plowed into Lord Beric's flesh where his shoulder joined his neck and clove him clean down to the breastbone. The blood came rushing out in a hot black gush. Sandor Clegane jerked backwards, still burning. He ripped the remnants of his shield off and flung them away with a curse, then rolled into the dirt to smother the fire running along his arm. Lord Beric's knees folded slowly, as if for prayer. When his mouth opened, only blood came out. The Hound's sword was still in him as he toppled face forward. The dirt drank his blood. Beneath the hollow hill there was no sound but the soft crackling of flames and the whimper the Hound made when he tried to rise. Arya could only think of Micah and all the stupid prayers she'd prayed for the Hound to die. If there were gods, why didn't Lord Beric win? She knew the Hound was guilty. "Please," Sandor Clegane rasped, cradling his arm. "I'm burned. Help me. Someone help me." He was crying. "Please." Arya looked at him in astonishment. He's crying like a little baby, she thought. "Millie, see to his burns," said Thoros. "Lem, Jack, help me with Lord Beric. Ned, you'd best come too." The Red Priest wrenched the Hound's sword from the body of his fallen lord and thrust the point of it down into the blood-soaked earth. Lem slid his big hands under Dondarrion's arms, while Jack Belucky took his feet. They carried him around the fire pit into the darkness of one of the tunnels. Thoros and the boy Ned followed after. The Mad Huntsman spat. "I say we take him back to Stony Sept and put him in a crow cage." "Yes," Arya said. "He murdered Micah. He did." "Such an angry squirrel," murmured Greenbeard. Harwin sighed. "R'hllor has judged him innocent." "Who's R'hllor?" She couldn't even say it. "The Lord of Light. Thoros has taught us." She didn't care what Thoros had taught them. She yanked Greenbeard's dagger from its sheath and spun away before he could catch her. Gendry made a grab for her as well, but she had always been too fast for Gendry. Tom Sevenstrings and some women were helping the Hound to his feet. The sight of his arms shocked her speechless. There was a strip of pink where the leather strap had clung, but above and below the flesh was cracked and red and bleeding from elbow to wrist. When his eyes met hers, his mouth twitched. You want me dead that bad? Then do it, wolf girl. Shove it in. It's cleaner than fire. Clegane tried to stand, but as he moved, a piece of burned flesh sloughed right off his arm, and his knees went out from under him. Tom caught him by his good arm and held him up. His arm, Arya thought, and his face. But he was the Hound. He deserved to burn in a fiery hell. The knife felt heavy in her hand. She gripped it tighter. You killed Micah, she said once more, daring him to deny it. Tell them. You did. You did. I did. His whole face twisted. I rode him down and cut him in half and laughed. And I watched them beat your sister bloody too. Watched them cut your father's head off. Lem grabbed her wrist and twisted, wrenching the dagger away. She kicked at him, but he would not give it back. You go to hell, Hound, she screamed at Sandor Clegane in helpless, empty-handed rage. You just go to hell. He has, said a voice scarce stronger than a whisper. When Arya turned, Lord Beric Dondarrion was standing behind her, his bloody hand clutching Thoros by the shoulder. All right, was that like half an hour? That was like half an hour. Boy, the symbolism. The Teespring link isn't working. It should be working. Why wouldn't it be working? Let me see. Yeah, it's working for me, guys. I don't know. It's working for me. There should be a link, literally a YouTube embedded link, as well as the one that's in my in the description as well. So go on from Michael Comark to, oh, who's this one? I don't know off the top of my head. This is by Maybell DC. This is a new one I found last night. This is more of a show Beric, but a very cool one. And this one is Joel Holtzman. I'll leave that up for a second. Oh, I totally need a lozenge. Once I committed to doing Hound voice, I didn't want to stop, but that was kind of rough. Yes, the broken sword myth. There's a thing going on there for sure. Beric might have more symbolism than anybody, like literally than anyone else in the entire story. It's quite possible. So it's going to take a minute to unpack. But first, let's just talk about the man, the fire wight, Beric Dondarrion. All right, I got to catch my breath. That was quite the reading. Yeah, so, but just real quick, just so you guys can think about it, this is a Weirwood cave. You got a fight between a burning sword and a cold sword. You know, there's a lot of Last Hero vibes going on here. It's a lot of fight against the others vibes. One second, let me just fix something real quick here. There we go. I'm actually just rubbing my eyes a little bit. I just figured it'd be better to do it off camera. Very dramatic, very secret. Lots of secret, mysterious face rubbing happening. Okay, so yeah, I was up real late last night, by the way. Yeah, real late. Put some eye drops in here, in fact. I'm going to be wearing the glasses all day today. Oh, yeah. Yes, it does take a little warm up. And we're back. All right, so yeah, the bird is very upset today. I don't know what to tell you about the bird. He's just in a mood. There's not a lot I can do. I can go give him a nut, but he'll just start complaining in 5 minutes. So we're just gonna have to wait it out. I apologize. He's just having one of those days. So let's do this a simple way. Let's go over to the wiki of Ice and Fire and let's talk about Beric Dondarrion. So before the events of the story, in either 294 or 295 AC, Beric is betrothed to Lady Illyria Dane, who I like to call Illyria Dane. And that is why Beric has Edric Dane as his squire, and he took Edric at the age of 7. So when we meet him here, this is well, actually, I guess at 7, Edric went back to went to Blackhaven to be a page, but then he later became Beric's squire. So he's known Beric for a good 5 or 6 years by now. And it's kind of interesting, you know, Ned Dane is got his own batch of good symbolism. He's obviously named after Ned Stark. So Beric is kind of bookended by Ned on either side. Ned sent him out, and Beric's squire's name is Ned, and that's not an accident at all. That's a very important thing, because of course I'm probably not breaking any news here to tell you that anybody with a flaming sword is going to be telling us about Azor Ahai. Beric obviously has the flaming sword going on. So his connections to the Starks and the Danes are very important for reasons of symbolism. But we're not talking symbolism yet. We're talking regular plot. So Beric is engaged to Illyria Dane a few years before the story. In Game of Thrones, he comes to King's Landing to fight in the Hand's Tourney. Jane Poole, of course, as you remember, famously kind of moons over him and thinks he's very handsome. In fact, I think I have that quote. Yeah, so this is actually the throne room scene. This is when Ned is looking for somebody to send out oh no, this one has a bunch of symbolism. I'm gonna hold reading this, but you guys remember they were in the throne room. And Loras volunteers. He wants to be the one to go out and track down the Hound. But Ned doesn't think that's smart, both because Loras is after revenge more than justice and because he's young. He's only 16. So instead, he sends out Lord Beric and a couple other lords. And then when Sansa and Jane are talking about it later, it's funny. It says, her father's decision still bewildered her. And this is Sansa talking. When the Knight of Flowers had spoken up, she'd been sure she was about to see one of old Nan's stories come to life. Sir Gregor was the monster, and Sir Loras the true hero who would slay him. He even looked a true hero, so slim and beautiful, with golden roses around his slender waist and rich brown hair tumbling down into his eyes. And then father had refused him. It had upset her more than she could tell. And then Peter Baelish comes in the room and asks what they're talking about. And it says, Sansa had no choice but to explain about heroes and monsters. The king's counselor smiled. Well, those are not the reasons I'd have given, but... He touched her cheek, his thumb lightly tracing the line of a cheekbone. Creeper alert. Life is not a song, sweetling. You may learn that one day to your sorrow. Sansa did not feel like telling all that to Jane, however. It made her uneasy just to think back on it. Yeah, that's because Peter's creepy. Sir Ilyn, the king's justice, not Sir Loras, Jane said. Lord Eddard should have sent him. Sansa shuddered. Every time she looked at Sir Ilyn in pain, she shivered. He made her feel as though something dead were slithering over her naked skin. Sir Ilyn's almost like a second monster. I'm glad father didn't pick him. Lord Beric is as much a hero as Sir Loras. He's ever so brave and gallant. I suppose, said Sansa doubtfully. Beric Dondarrion was handsome enough, but he was awfully old, almost 22. Thanks, Sansa. The Knight of Flowers would have been much better. Of course, Jane had been in love with Lord Beric ever since she had first glimpsed him in the lists. Sansa thought she was being silly. Jane was only a steward's daughter, after all, and no matter how much she mooned after him, Lord Beric would never look at someone so far beneath him, even if she hadn't been half his age. Moon alert, moon alert. You can't read any quotes about Beric without symbolism happening, because all he does is symbolism. And yeah, he's 22. Totally. Brandon, I will not answer this question, but I will put it on the screen just for a moment. All right. So Beric is, like we were saying, sent out to bring justice to Gregor Clegane. However, he's ambushed at the Battle of the Mummers Ford, and many people are killed. He's killed in the river, and that's when Ned Stark stands over his body and protects him. And then Thoros raises him from the dead. Let's see here. Then it says, by the time that Robb Stark and his allies are fighting the Lannister armies near the Trident, Beric's survivors continually raid the Lannisters' foraging parties. Lord Dondarrion is named amongst the nobles King Joffrey Baratheon lists. insist much do homage to him or be named traitors. So Beric is already essentially out. That's the beginning of his story. He gets sent out, and then he starts dying and doing his Lord Beric kind of Robin Hood thing. And it says, let's see here. The Clash of Kings, basically, it's just rumors that go about. Everyone in the Riverlands hears about him. There's a ton of cool lines about how he's the wisp of the woods, and he melts away, and he strikes like lightning and disappears. And he basically is carrying on with that mission and harassing the Lannisters and basically protecting the people, just like he was sent out to do. And that, of course, is the Robin Hood layer, is that, you know, Beric's band literally is protecting the common people from, you know, the ravages of the High Lords. Because Tywin is essentially punishing the Riverlands purely out of, as a political ploy. So this is literally the High Lords playing Games of Thrones and the common people suffering. And then here is the Brotherhood without banners to defend them. So that's kind of the setup. So in Storm, we get that whole scene that we just read. Of course, Beric is raised again. And there's a couple more scenes with Arya where, you know, they're talking about how he's been resurrected 6 times. They talk about his deaths. Some interesting conversations. They go to see the ghost of High Heart. And then essentially we find out in Feast that Beric gave his flame of life to Stoneheart. And essentially when they found Stoneheart in the river after being dead for 3 days, Thoros refused to raise her, but Beric breathed the flame of life and passed. And so that was Beric's last hurrah. He gave up whatever R'hllor power that he had to Stoneheart, and that was the end of his story. So there are 7 deaths of Gregor of Dondarrion. He's impaled by a lance by Gregor. That's at the ford. He's smashed with a mace on the side of his head. We saw that wound. That was from Crakehall, Burton Crakehall. He was hanged at Rushing Falls by Emery Lorch. That's the hanging wound. He was stabbed in the eye with a dirk by Gregor Clegane. So that's the 2nd death by Gregor. He was killed by Vargo Hoat of the Brave Companions. He was killed by Sandor in the scene we just saw. And then, of course, he passed the flame of life on to Cat Stark. So that is the 7 deaths of Beric. I'm going to try to go give my birds something, see if I can chill them out. They're absolutely freaking out. So hang on just a second, guys. All right. Well, there's always time to praise Garth. A couple minutes early. In any case, all right. So that's Beric's plot. It's pretty simple. It's not a lot of detail to it. He is undead Robin Hood. Thematically, it is important to understand that role that he's playing before we dive into the symbolism, because the symbolism is a little confusing. There's a lot going on, but I think that Beric's identity as someone who defends the people first and foremost is something that we've always got to keep in mind. Hey there, friend. So let's see. Where do we even start with the symbolism? Okay, so, well, I guess the flaming sword. That's the most obvious symbol. Beric has a flaming sword, so that makes us think about Azor Ahai. Once you catch on to the idea that there are archetypes in A Song of Ice and Fire, meaning that Azor Ahai is a historical figure, but also an archetype, a role that many people can play, then you start looking at all the people with flaming swords, and that's the easy way to identify them, right? So Stannis has a burning sword. Thoros has a burning sword. Beric has a burning sword. Jon dreams about having a burning sword. Brienne and Jaime have burning swords when they're in the cave in Jaime's dream. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. And all of these scenes are telling us about Azor Ahai stuff. All right. So that is not, like I said, that is not a mystery. But the first thing that really blew my mind about Beric, it was basically as soon as I caught on to the archetype thing, like I'm looking at Stannis, right? And you see, okay, well, he's obviously not Azor Ahai Reborn. That's Jon and Dany. Of course, Dany doesn't have a flaming sword. She has the flaming dragons instead. But the fact that Stannis, who's so clearly not the real or the most important, if you will, echo of Azor Ahai Reborn, and yet does have the flaming sword, that's what made me think, okay, well, all these people with flaming swords, they're telling us about Azor Ahai. And then as soon as you see Beric, the first time you see him, he's in a weirwood nest, right? He's like at the top of, what was the line? It was literally like, it didn't use the word nest, but it might as well have. It was almost as flagrant. It was basically like a basket or something. Let me see what it said. In one place on the far side of the fire, the roots formed a kind of stairway up to a hollow in the earth where a man sat almost lost in the tangle of weirwood. Like that could be a description of Bloodraven, flat out, right? And Beric also has one eye, and it's a red eye. So it's very flagrant Bloodraven symbolism. He's sitting in a weirwood nest, and he's got one red eye, but he's got a burning sword, just like Azor Ahai. And not only just a burning sword, but he's literally reanimated by fire magic. So he's a being of fire magic. Azor Ahai is called the warrior of fire. And it's said that all those who die in his cause will be reborn. Azor Ahai himself is called Azor Ahai Reborn. So there's a lot of resurrection ideas all around Azor Ahai anyway. So we've got this burning sword guy. It's powered by, he's a warrior of fire, animated by fire magic. But again, he's sitting in a weirwood nest. Yeah, praise Garth. 420 East Central. He's sitting in a weirwood nest. So what does this mean? This is what started me speculating that perhaps Azor Ahai was a green seer, which eventually mutated into the idea that Azor Ahai was not in fact born a green seer, but kind of forced his way into the weirwood net, and eventually I saw all the symbolism that Nissa was a child of the forest, which kind of made the connection. It was like, oh, well, he murders a child of the forest or a part child of the forest woman in a blood magic ritual. Well, this could be a way to break into the weirwood net, right? So here's Beric. He's in a weirwood cave, but he's looking like Azor Ahai. So that's cool. And going further, it's more than just his parallels with Bloodraven are more than just the eye wound and the weirwood caveness and the fact that he is undead. He's called a scarecrow knight, and you can see his bones peeking through. And so Bloodraven, of course, you can see his skull peeking through his face. Let's see. Bloodraven is a three-eyed crow, while Beric is a scarecrow. So it's a way of making Beric sort of an honorary Night's Watchman. Beric also has a black cloak, just like the Night's Watch does. His has stars on it. But of course, Azor Ahai was also the Bloodstone Emperor who started the Church of Starry Wisdom. So he's got a starry cloak. And of course, a black cloak with stars on it is basically just a picture of the night sky. Mithras actually had a starry cloak too. So, of course, Mithras is one of those mythical figures that contributes to our Azor Ahai family, if you will, our larger Azor Ahai persona. Mithras has a torch and a sword. Jon has a bunch of Mithras symbolism. Mithras, of course, slays the white bull that's a friend to him, just like Jon's. The ghost, the white wolf, is probably going to have to die to get Jon resurrected and reborn. And just like Gerald Hightower, the white bull, died at Jon's birth, Mithras's white bull dies at Mithras's rebirth, on and on and on. I don't want to get too lost in Mithras, but the starry cloak is a Mithras thing. So then, so black cloak, Bloodraven has a black cloak. They're both crows. They're both half undead. Let's see, the one eye. Oh yes, the hanging wound is important. Bloodraven, of course, isn't actually hung, whatever. With a noose from a tree. However, this idea of hanging symbolically goes back to Odin, who hung upon Yggdrasil, or hanged upon Yggdrasil. I think I said Yggdrasil. Let's call it Yggdrasil from now on. Yggdrasil. Odin hung on the branches of the tree for 9 days and nights. He sort of died and defeated death, sees the runes, becomes more powerful. The Song of Ice and Fire version of this, as I said many times, is being the green seers being hung in the root zone of the tree instead of up on the branches. But similarly, this allows them to transcend death, to become powerful wizards, and to tap into the magic of the magic tree. So the hanging of Beric just complements the idea that he's in the Weirwood Cave. This is more Odin symbolism. It tells us that he's transcended death, and anything with Odin symbolism in A Song of Ice and Fire, you want to think green seers. So we've got that going on. He's also Odin was also speared and sort of impaled to the tree in some myths. So we've got a lance that went all the way through Beric. Also Christ, of course, pierced in the side with the spear. Similar part of the myth there. And let's see, Beric, well, of course, the one eye wound, that's also an Odin thing. Both Bloodraven and Beric are essentially copying Odin in that respect, because the whole idea is that Odin gave up one of his eyes to drink from the well of Mimir, which again gave him magical knowledge. And the symbolism is you give up, you sort of sacrifice your lower physical self to awaken your higher self, just like a monk or a hermit might meditate, deprive themselves of fleshly desires in order to, focus on the spiritual realm or whatever. So that's the idea. And so we see specifically Beric, he does a death and resurrection scene based on the stabbing in the eye there. So then we've got, why did Ned choose Beric? Well, he chose Beric because he was someone he could trust to do the right thing. He didn't want somebody hot-headed out there that would start more problems, but somebody that would act responsibly. And I think Beric was the one that he trusted in that situation, as well as the other men that he sent with him. And of course, for reasons of symbolism, but we'll talk about the Ned part of that in a second. So essentially what we have with Beric is that he's combining Azor Ahai and Greenseer symbolism by bouncing off of Bloodraven and then by having all the fire magic and stuff. Then he goes and he fights this duel with, the Hound. And the Hound sword is repeatedly described as the cold one and the cold steel. So you have this ice and fire sword thing happening, which is really interesting. Now, Beric's sword, of course, breaks. And the broken sword is a very important symbol, right? Because the last hero's sword broke against the others. Or not, it says that the others were chasing him and it grew so cold that his sword broke. So it doesn't specifically say that he broke it against the ice sword of another. But of course, that's what Waymar did. And Waymar was very much mimicking the last hero when he was confronting the others alone in the north as a Night's Watch Ranger. And his sword breaks. Were you guys okay? My screen just went, I just got a little, just hung for a second. Hopefully we're all still here. Okay. So, last hero, broken sword. Waymar, copying the last hero, breaks his sword against the others. Beric breaks his sword against the cold one, the cold steel of the Hound. And then, let's see. Let's just do a little Google search here. House Dondarrion wiki. Let's see. How did their house get started? How did it get started? The Dondarrion line was founded when a messenger from the Storm King, so think Baratheons, Horn Lords, just as Beric talks about serving Robert the Stagman King over and over and over, the Dondarrion line was founded when a messenger from the Storm King was ambushed by 2 Dornishmen while riding on a stormy night. An arrow killed his horse and his sword broke when he fell. Broken sword. When he thought he was doomed, a bright purple lightning bolt struck the Dornishmen, killing both. The man was thus able to deliver his crucial message on time. For this, the Storm King raised him to lordship, and he became the first Dondarrion. So, we've got yet another broken sword in the myth. Now, the thing about lightning is that when Waymar broke his sword, of course, it said that it was twisted and splintered like a tree struck by lightning. So we've got this idea of lightning striking trees and breaking swords. Now, the thing is that when we talk about lightning striking trees, this goes back to the Grey King myth about, this is a fire of the gods myth, right? The Grey King taunted the storm god. Instead of the Storm King, it's the storm god. The storm god lashes with a thunderbolt. It sets a tree on fire. And this is how the Grey King, Prometheus-like, gave man, possessed fire of the gods for mankind. So the fire of the gods is an important symbol. It's a symbol of Lightbringer in a general sense. But of course, I don't want to talk about that yet. So we've got, so the burning tree is a weirwood symbol and a fire of the gods symbol, essentially. And so in the prologue, when the others break the sword and it's like a tree struck by lightning, that's equating the others with the storm gods and with the gods. They strike like lightning. And when they break swords, it's like when the gods struck down to fire, to the earth with their fire. And so here in this combined Beric Dondarrion mythology, we see that this lightning striking is coupled with a broken sword. Just like when the others broke the sword, it was like lightning striking a tree. And like I said, this all has to do with weirwood symbolism. And of course, Beric is sitting in the weirwood cave. So what this all means is that Azor Ahai, when he becomes a green seer and inhabits the weirwood realm, he's possessing the fire of the gods. That's what that means. It's just basically like 5 different ways of saying the same thing. The Grey King is the Azor Ahai green seer figure. He taunts the storm god. The lightning strikes. The tree burns. Now he has access to that burning tree, the fire of the gods, the knowledge of the weirwood net. Of course, the lightning bolt is also a meteor symbol. Obviously, it's a fiery thing falling from heaven. And when the dragons dive bomb from the sky, they're described as thunderbolts. Meteors in the classic world were called thunderstones. And of course, the number one symbol of comets and meteors in the entire series is a flaming sword. So Beric is walking around by having a flaming sword and a lightning bolt sigil. Those are basically just two symbols of meteor strikes. Because he's Azor Ahai, that's why. Anybody with a flaming sword is telling us something about Azor Ahai. So he has all the symbols of the long night. He has, like I said, flaming sword that refers to meteors, lightning bolt that refers to meteors. You saw that the stars were almost obliterated on his sigil. Okay, so he's obliterating the stars. He's got the black cloak that covers the sky. So kind of the whole shebang there as far as the Azor Ahai long night symbolism. And I want to make sure I didn't. Okay, I didn't miss one. All right, we are okay. Yes, so some of you may know. Let's read the names of Santa's reindeer. Let's do that. This will be fun for those of you who don't see this coming. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen, and Rudolph. Although Donner is sometimes called Dundar, and Blitzen is sometimes called Blixen. Dundar, that's interesting. So what we're talking about here is the German and Dutch words for thunder. One is Donner and one is Dundar. And so let me just go ahead and, I don't like to be imprecise. It means thunder. I mean, you can hear it. It's a similar word to thunder. Oh, wrong thing. Sorry. Yeah, so Donder, D-O-N-D-E-R, is the Dutch form, and Donner is the German form. But they're all variants of the same word, and that is where we get thunder. So the name Dondarrion, it's got the word thunder right in there. What it also has is a reference to Santa's reindeer, which implies Beric as Stagman with antlers like this. Just, yeah. So, of course, if we look at our other flaming sword people, we look at, of course, primarily Stannis, who is a stagman in every sense. He's got the stag sigil. He's got the fiery heart joke. You know, the stag is a heart and it's inside a fiery heart. Point is, the whole stagman line of symbolism refers to the green men and refers to green seers. So it's not an accident that we find that reindeer symbolism with Beric. It's not just the thunder reference; it's also the Cernunnos Stagman reference. So that's always one of my favorite finds with Beric. Anything that had to do with Santa Claus is good, and of course, Santa is a variation of the Holly King, and the Holly King is just that's Cernunnos lore, anyways, right? So that's why Santa and Satan are one letter off, because they both derive. No, I'm just kidding. It's not true. It's not true. Those are lies. However, it is true that the Christian version of Satan does draw a lot from Cernunnos and Horn God folklore, and Santa circuitously also does draw from Holly King folklore. So it all goes back to the Oak and the Holly King, which is just a bifurcation of Cernunnos. It's all Horn God mythology depicting the cycle of the seasons. The cycle of the seasons, of course, is the most important thing in A Song of Ice and Fire, since the big problem is a long night, which is a winter that doesn't end, and the seasons they're stuck. So we got all these horned lords trying to die and resurrect themselves to get this cycle turning, because that's what stagmen have to do. They have to die and resurrect themselves. Literally, like that's George, all the zombies in A Song of Ice and Fire, it's just George's twisted version of Green Man folklore, because all of the Green Man folklore always involves resurrection. If it's just one Green Man, like Cernunnos, then he dies in the fall, and the triple goddess usually resurrects him in the spring, and he's just dead in the winter. When you split it out into Oak and Holly King, then each one rules for 6 months. The Oak King rules during the summer, Holly King rules during the winter, and they just take turns. They die and resurrect. So if you're going to make that symbolism literal, it kind of leads you to zombies. And so that's what George has done. And so we have all these undead stagmen. Stannis is described as looking corpse-like. Like I said, Beric is literally reanimated. Bloodraven is corpse-like. Jon is going to be reanimated. So it's stags must always there it is, resurrect themselves. Very nice, Mod Mary, thank you. Showing why I made you a mod. Gawain in the Green Knight. Yep, that's another good one to dig into. And so yeah, the Gawain in the Green Knight really is a fun one. That's a wacky myth, man. That is a wacky myth. So we've got these undead stagmen. So Beric is playing into that. Let's see, where did I want to go from here? I had a thought in my head. So that's why all the zombies. What was I going to say? Oh yes, the Dondarrion thing. So Santa is a version of the Holly King. version of Cernunnos. Okay, so Odin is also a variation on that mythology. He's sort of wandered away from the family a little bit, and he's become very distinct in his own right. But he is a shamanic god of magic, and he does do the death and resurrection stuff. And so he's also a storm god in some cases, even before Thor was. Thor is the son of Odin, of course. So Odin leads the wild hunt. So that's another thing, is Odin and other Cernunnos figures are also associated with the wild hunt. And Santa with his reindeer is just another version of the wild hunt. And the cool thing about Santa's reindeer version of it is that it's in the sky. And so it's flying through the sky. And that's why the names are things like Comet and Thunder and Lightning, because Blixen means lightning. So you've got things that are in the sky, you know, flying through the sky. But it's also a wild hunt of stagmen. So it's very, very fun mythology. And George is borrowing from it in multiple places. So we've got this lightning lord named Dondarrion, who is implied as a stagman because of all the green seer shit. So that's why that makes sense. Man, those birds are mad today. I'm so sorry, guys. It's both the cockatoo and Goose the Myers pair. They're both just really mad at me. I don't know what to tell you. It'd be worse if I bring them out though. So yeah, well, that's why Satan looks like Pan, because they're both drawing from similar mythology. Car snack. Yeah. He's sucking on too much Yule Nog there, Carl. You're drinking the alcoholic Yule Nog. All right, so give the birds a bit of beer. Yeah, I never heard of that one. Beer. I don't know if I could feed him beer. Okay, so Jon is a corn king, right? So Jon doesn't have any antlers, of course, but he does have a variety of green man symbolism. Is most specifically the Corn King is a modern name for the archetype of the dying and resurrecting nature god. They're almost always horned folk. And the King of Winter, which is of course a title of the Stark Kings, that's also derived from Green Man folklore and Wicker Man folklore. All right, so there's also a cool reference to the Ash folklore. Of course, Beric was resurrected in a grove of ash one time. This is where I got the title of that episode. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is a good... Okay, I want to read this longer quote. This is the one where Beric's asking how many times he's been resurrected. That's sort of the other signature Beric quote. Lord Beric touched the spot above his left ear where his temple was caved in. Here is where Sir Burton Craighall broke his helm and head with the blow of his mace. He unwound his scarf, exposing the black bruise that encircled his neck. Here the mark the manticore made at Rushing Falls. He seized a poor beekeeper and his wife, thinking they were mine, and let it be known far and wide that he would hang them both unless I gave myself up to him. When I did, he hanged them anyway, and me on the gibbet beside them. He lifted a finger to the raw red pit of his eye. Here was where the mountain thrust his dirk through my visor. A weary smile brushed his lips. That's thrice I've died at the hands of House Clegane. You would think that I might have learned. It was a jest, Arya knew, but Thoros did not laugh. He put a hand on Lord Beric's shoulder. Best not to dwell on it. Can I dwell on what I scarce remember? I held a castle on the marches once, and there was a woman I was pledged to marry, but I could not find that castle today, nor tell you the color of that woman's hair. Who knighted me, old friend? What were my favorite foods? It all fades. Sometimes I think I was born on the bloody grass in that grove of ash, with the taste of fire in my mouth and a hole in my chest. Are you my mother, Thoros? So that's, again, I did a whole podcast called In a Grove of Ash, because Yggdrasil, or Yggdrasil, is an ash tree. And ash trees are very significant in Norse mythology as well as Greek mythology. But in Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is an ash tree. And so Odin is literally reborn on an ash tree. And so here we have Beric. He's reborn in a grove of ash trees. But he's got the taste of fire in his mouth. Because here's the thing, right? Remember, I just said that when Grey King's lightning bolt sets that tree on fire, that symbolizes the weirwood tree, because the weirwood red leaves are described as looking like a blaze of flame, which means it looks like a burning tree. That makes sense, obviously, because you think of the burning bush of Moses, the idea of the fire of the gods. So it's like a tree that burns but isn't consumed, visually speaking. All right. So the thing is that, of course, if you set a tree on fire, it becomes ash, right? So a burning tree produces ash, but Yggdrasil, which is a tree that carries the fire of the gods, is an ash tree. And so George loves to combine all of this by burning trees or by having Azor Ahai reborn people like Daenerys, for example, be reborn amongst the ashes. So Melisandre talks about Azor Ahai being reborn like an ember in the ashes. Dany is reborn sitting in ash, covered in ash. And this is the point of all this, is that Azor Ahai goes into the weirwood net, into the weirwoods. And the weirwoods are symbolic ash trees. And Azor Ahai does this in a blaze of fire. So here we have an Azor Ahai reborn figure. He's reborn in a grove of ash. So inside the symbolic ash tree, the weirwood, but the taste of fire is in his mouth because he has the fire of the gods. He also has a hole in his chest because he's been killed and resurrected. So there you go. I love that death scene because it has so much symbolism, of course. And there's another one of his deaths that has really good symbolism. Let's see here. The maester who cared for him was a young man, thankfully. After the old knight had drifted to sleep in his chair, he took them aside and said, "I fear you seek a ghost. We had a bird ages ago, half a year at least. The Lannisters caught Lord Beric near the God's Eye. He was hanged." "Aye, hanged he was, but Thoros cut him down before he died." Lem's broken nose was not so red or swollen as it had been, but it was healing crooked, giving his face a lopsided look. "His lordship's a hard man to kill, he is." So Lem's kind of in denial about the resurrections. He thinks that he's just like somehow surviving. But the point is that he was hanged near the God's Eye. And the God's Eye, of course, is a lake with an island full of weirwoods and symbolizes the idea of Odin's eye, the idea of one eye being put out and the third eye opening with the knowledge of the gods. And of course, up in the sky, the moon wanders too close to the sun. That creates an eclipse, which looks like an eye, which then explodes. And that exploding celestial eye is the cause of the long night, in the sense that that's the moon explosion. So you have this Azor Ahai figure. Well, he was hanged, meaning he did a death transformation near the God's Eye, i.e. when the sun and moon cracked and when Azor Ahai possessed the fire of the gods. So every one of his deaths references these events in different ways. So here's one where this is a reference to the last hero getting help from the children of the forest. And also this is complementary to the idea that Beric, living inside the weirwoods, is still protecting the people. So you have to think about the last hero in the first Night's Watch, who I believe, of course, were undead. That's the Green Zombies theory. But as you know, okay, so Old Man says last hero was hard up against it. His friends died, sword broke, others chasing him. Then Bran cuts in later and says, "Oh, the children will help him. The children helped the last hero." So we know the children helped the last hero. We also know that the children helped the Men of the Night's Watch organize. And we know the first Men of the Night's Watch swear their vows to weirwood trees, which means to the Green Seers and the children. So just to give you the background. So these are all the connections between Last Hero and the Children of the Forest. So check out this quote here. "What did the maester mean about asking the Lady of the Leaves?" Arya asked Angwai as they rode. The archer smiled. "Wait and see." 3 days later, as they rode through a yellow wood, Jack Belucky unsung his horn and blew a signal, a different one than before. The sounds had scarcely died away when the rope ladders unrolled from the limbs of trees. "Hobble the horses and up we go," said Tom, half singing the words. They climbed to a hidden village in the upper branches, a maze of rope walkways and little moss-covered houses concealed behind walls of red and gold. And we were taken to the Lady of the Leaves, a stick-thin, white-haired woman dressed in rough spun. We cannot stay here much longer with autumn on us, she told them. A dozen wolves went down to the Hayford Road 9 days past, hunting. If they'd chanced to look up, they might have seen us. You'd not seen Lord Beric? Asked Tom Seven Strings. He's dead. The woman sounded sick. The mountain caught him and drove a dagger through his eye. A begging brother told us. He had it from the lips of a man who saw it happen. That's a stale tale and false, said Lem. The Lightning Lord's not so easy to kill. Sir Gregor might have put his eye out, but a man don't die of that. Jack could tell you. So we'll get to the mountain part of that. But this is cool. So the people that live up in the tree towns are friends to Beric's forces, right? And of course, the children of the forest were said to live in tree towns. So this is very obvious child of the forest symbolism. And the point is they're on Team Beric. They're trying to help him. He's their champion, et cetera, et cetera. So all that helps us figure out that Beric must be one of those Azor Ahai figures. Instead of sort of becoming a Night's King, he seems to be more showing us that resurrected last hero figure. As I've said many times, the Azor Ahai archetype seems to split. We have these evil Azor Ahai figures like Euron, for example, or even the Boltons. You know, Ramsay Snow has parallel symbolism to Jon Snow, and Lord Bolton himself is like a Night's King, but he still has the Azor Ahai to Night's King stuff happening. But then we also have very heroic Lord, Azor Ahai figures like Lord Beric and like Jon Snow will eventually be. So we're left to figure out, if it's a thing where the same guy was a villain and a hero at different times. But I really think there has to be a sword fight because, again, we have all these magic sword fights like the one we just read. And so that implies that there is a magic sword fight of ice and fire. And that makes sense, right? Because we've got Dawn, the white sword, which I've said is the original ice. And even if it's not the original ice, it at least has ice symbolism, being pale as milk glass. And it's described with a lot of the same wording as the others who have bones like milk glass, and their swords are alive with moonlight. But then we've got these black dragon swords, the Valyrian steel swords that are associated with fire and darkness. And we've also got the meteor bifurcation, right? Dawn was made from a white meteor, and Bloodstone Emperor has the black meteor. And Bloodstone Emperor seems in all ways to be a predecessor of Valyria and Valyrian magic. So I suspect that there was an originally, a black sword, a prototype of Valyrian steel, and that we did have a magic black sword taking on Dawn in a magic sword fight. Because again, we see I'm looking down at this picture of Beric and the Hound. That's why I keep looking down. But like, what else is this foreshadowing? It's obviously not all down to a sword fight, but the sword fight is obviously part of it. Yeah, and so the thing about the Hound, now he's burned. Beric is burning, but the Hound is burned. And so I think that complements the Hound's cold sword symbolism. Because after something is burned and the fire goes out, it is then cold. And I know it sounds super basic, but it's just that's the trails we have to follow. Think of the shade of the evening trees. They are black with the blue leaves. And actually, like wood that's been burned looks kind of black and blue. So somebody was suggested to me that maybe that's how we should see the shade trees, because I've been saying forever that they are. No, I don't have COVID. I just smoked too much. Sorry. I hope that's not what you're talking about. Like I said, I never leave my house, so there's no way I can catch COVID. I'm very safe. But in any case, the idea of something being burned, I think the others you could look at them that way because they're fire transformed. They used to be the fiery seed of Azor Ahai and got turned to ice. So I think that's what the Hound is all about. Also, the Hound joins the Kingsguard. So that's other symbolism for him too, right? 1 second. Let me just grab another one of these guys here. Poor Goose. Goose is having a bad day. I don't know what's up with him. Some days are just not happy to be in the cage. I don't know what to say. All right, so let's see. Okay. what was I going to say next? Okay, so Beric is in, like I said, in a weirwood cave. He's leading this Robin Hood band of heroes. He's defending the people. He's friends to the people in the tree town. That's a symbolic Shout of the Forest group. And there's lots of dead symbolism, right? Everybody in the cave is specified as being undead. You know, there was that exchange where they're yelling at each other, "You're dead. No, you're dead." And then there's the quote about, I'm looking for it. Let's see. He says, every time one of our men fell, you know, every time one of us died, someone took his place. So it just kind of tells you. I don't have the exact quote, but it's something like that. Okay, here's one that I do have. It says, there were a dozen men living in the vault beneath the sept, amongst cobwebs and roots and broken wine casks. So a cave beneath a sept. So a sept is a holy place. So this is a holy cave. So think weirwood cave. And there's a dozen men in there. So that's your last heroes group. It said, but they had no word of Beric, not even their leader, who wore a soot-blackened armor and a crude lightning bolt on his cloak. When Greenbeard saw Arya staring at him, he laughed and said, the lightning lord is everywhere and nowhere, skinny squirrel. So that tells you what they're doing is they have fake barracks running around just to confuse people. So you've got a dozen people led by a fake barrack, and they're in a weirwood cave. So this is more like doubling up of the symbolism to tell you, like, Beric in the weirwood cave with his band is like the last heroes group of 12 people who died and were, of course, resurrected. When Ned sends Beric out, there's resurrection talk. He says, people of Share, I cannot give you back your homes or crops, nor can I restore your dead to life. But perhaps I can give you some small measure of justice in the name of King Robert. And then he sends out Beric, who is somebody who's brought back to life. So he's like, maybe I can't bring your people back to life, but I can give you a zombie. So that's cool. And all this stuff about Beric serving Robert tells you also he serves the green men. Like, Robert is a Garth figure, a green man figure. And so the Sacred Order of Green Men, I've been saying for years, the Green Men and the Night's Watch are joined at the hip. They're one and the same. One was formed out of the other. I don't know, but I believe the pact that was formed on the Isle of Faces, where the Green Men were established, is also the pact that formed the Night's Watch, where the Children of the Forest helped the last hero and they banded together to beat the others. Oh, man. Quinn left his dog outside and left the house, and now the dog wants to get inside. And I cannot help the dog. But the dog knows where my window is, so it comes and whines at my window. Anyways, behind the camera talk. Okay, so, and Ned also says the first men believe that the judge who called for death should wield the sword. So Ned's talking about the beliefs of the first men, as he says, I can't bring your people back to life, but here's Lord Beric. So that's cool. And it said, in that quote where Sansa's talking about heroes and monsters, they say, oh, well, they could have sent out Sir Ilyn, the King's Justice, and they're like, oh, he's just another monster. But of course, once somebody's undead, they become a monster. So this idea that the undead last hero was sent against the others, it actually is sending a monster against a monster. And Lord Beric, of course, becomes undead. So he is a monster being sent against a monster. And that is essentially what the last hero kind of thing is. No, I can't let the dog in because then the dog will run around and cause trouble while I'm trying to live stream. And yeah, it's complicated, but we have dog rules here, and there's certain times they can come in, certain times they can't, and all that stuff. So yes, right now I cannot do it. Anyways, let's see here. Where was I? Yeah, I got birds and dogs going crazy. It's just a zoo. I'm pressing on though. All the pets are fine. You guys are fine. You're fine. You're fine. Everyone's fine. Did Lancel find the breastplate stretcher? No, I don't think he did, but I do have a breastplate stretcher joke coming up in my next video about the old ones and the green men, so you can look forward to that. And let me actually pause and check my email. I haven't checked the email for the PayPals today. We're like an hour and a half into the stream. So I actually got one this morning. From Marley, yes. We know that The Winds of Winter will be a huge book. Which POV characters are you looking forward to reading about? Which plot lines are you looking forward to the most? Are you hoping will be included? Well, definitely Brand. The chapter that could most excite me is a Brand chapter, because every Brand chapter you learn most about the music. Let's see, or the magic music. Sorry, I was reading and talking at the same time. Who else besides Brand the most am I looking forward to? I mean, obviously Dany. Y'all know she's my favorite character, so that's no doubt. But more like sort of, oh, I did miss a super chat from earlier. Okay, let me see if I can go back and catch it. Thank you. Who else am I looking forward to? Here it is. I see it. Okay, cool. I'm really looking forward to that whole glass candle, Marwyn the Mage, Dany thing. That'll be Dany's POV, but specifically that Marwyn the Mage glass candle aspect of it, I'm really looking forward to. Definitely looking forward to seeing how Cersei's descent into madness in King's Landing goes. I'm looking forward to seeing what Jaime does from here a lot. That Weirwood Cave scene with Jaime and Brienne and Stoneheart, like that's maybe one of the things I'm hoping to read about that as soon as I open the book. Like, tell me what the hell is going on in that cave. So either a Brienne or a Jaime POV is going to get me pretty excited. And Sam in Old Town is probably going to see what's going on with Euron. I mean, it's going to be nothing but hits, man. Nothing but hits. Some guy with a PayPal from a minute ago, or super chat. Azor Ahai descending into the Weirwood net in a blaze of fire, removing the cold from it and creating the walkers. Exactly. So the fire goes into the tree, and the tree spirits are driven out into the cold. And it's when the tree spirits are evicted from the tree that they gain these icy bodies known as the others. And I really need to do a video explaining the mechanics of this. But essentially, the others, to me, appear to be one part tree spirit and then one part human sacrifice to make a body, like an ice golem body. Because you need both a Weirwood spirit and baby sacrifice to make a White Walker. So there are some scenes which hint about how that works. And I will get into that as soon as I can. My parrot wants to see your parrot. Okay. You should do late night stoner ASMR. I don't know about ASMR, but we did do the 4-hour New Year's Eve stream where we smoked and drank and flipped the bird and all that stuff. So check that out if you missed it. Jinty M says, Beric seems to pave the way to a long 90s. Let's Hound the other leave the Weirwood Cave. Arya's conviction that only death equals justice intensifies, raises Cat as Stoneheart. A lot of scary long night stuff. Yeah, that's true. And there is when Beric passes his flame of life to Cat, who's coming out of the Green Fork. It's a lot like Night's King giving his seed and soul to Night's Queen, because Cat is a corpse queen, and that whole thing about Night's King seeing corpse queen from the top of the wall and then going north to chase her and catch her. I think that could be metaphorical, talking about the Weirwood net. So think about Azor Ahai instead inside the Weirwood net, pursuing his lost love, maybe Nissa Nissa or somebody else in the Weirwood net that ends up being Night's Queen. And then, like I said, Night's Queen takes the seed and soul of Night's Queen or Night's King. So it's like he's giving her his magic and his soul. We see that replayed with Stannis and Melisandre. Okay, Stannis gives his life fires to Melisandre. Melisandre makes shadow babies with it, which are parallel to the others. So here's Beric. He's giving his life fire to a corpse queen who's coming out of the Weirwood net. And then she takes control of the Brotherhood and turns them kind of evil, which might be a kind of an others symbolism there. So, but I will say that the others, Night's Watch Brothers symbolism is really flip-floppy, and it gets really murky sometimes. And that's Lady Stoneheart is a prime example of that. It's sometimes she looks like dead Nissa Nissa, sometimes she looks more like a Night's Queen figure, and there could be some overlap there. So we're still trying to figure that out. But you're right that, yes, Beric does do some of this stuff that leads to a lot of damage. And also, he's defeated. That's the interesting thing. Like, Last Hero initially breaks his sword. Waymar is defeated and resurrected. Stannis is defeated and has to come back again. And also I thought of the Oberyn fight. The Oberyn fight feels a lot like this, right? So Oberyn is a fire sun warrior, just like Beric is a fire sword warrior. They're both going against Cleganes, right? And Oberyn's right about to win and then loses at the last second, just like Beric's right about to win and loses at the last second. So there's some part of the Last Hero drama where he loses and has to, and like dies or has to come back stronger, something like that, So I'm still trying to figure out what all the zigs and zags of the Last Hero story was. But clearly there is a point at which he loses and has to regroup and probably, get resurrected. Just like Jon got murdered, he's going to be resurrected too. So, yes, where was I? PayPal's. And I promise it will be worse if I take the birds out, because then they're just going to be jumping all over everything and I'm going to be totally distracted and I won't even be able to stream. I've done this before. Craig says, thanks for the content. Started tuning in the summer of 2019. Recently caught up. Excited for 2021 material. My question, Lord Beric is also known as the Scarecrow Knight and Lord of Corpses. How does that play? Oh, thank you. That's one I missed. Perfect. Well done. So the Scarecrow Knight thing, that figures in when, remember Jon has the dream. When he has his flaming sword, the only people on the wall helping him are the Scarecrow Knights. And the Scarecrow Knights are the sort of straw men that the Night's Watch rigged up to make it look like there were more Night's Watchmen across the top of the wall than there really was. So this is a great bit of symbolism because it tells us that the Night's Watch are like straw men, which just means green man, wicker man, king of winter. That's all the same idea. And then when they call them scarecrows, that's even better. So now it's like literally a scarecrow is what they're sort of crucified, right? Up on a wooden pole on a tree. So we've got a wicker man crucified on a tree. And then in Jon's dream, when he's got the burning sword, well, now they're burning scarecrows. They're on fire. So we've got the idea of green men, wicker men, Night's Watchmen. And they're also implied as dead because the scarecrows get named after the Night's Watch brothers who have died. So they literally represent dead Night's Watch brothers, but now they're scarecrows, and then they're catching on fire, and they're the only companions that Jon has when he's defending the wall against the others with a burning sword. So this is a major Green Zombies clue, the Scarecrow Knights. It tells you think about fire resurrected, green, symbolic green men, green zombies. And then Beric, of course, is called the Scarecrow Knight. And what is he? Literally a fire resurrected dude. So that just helps us understand that the scarecrows are to be seen as fire resurrected dudes, and Beric can be seen as an honorary Night's Watchman. And that makes sense because, of course, the Last Hero leads the Night's Watch. So that's the Scarecrow Knight part. And the Lord of Corpses, well, again, that just has to do with Last Hero being undead and having a dozen undead warriors like Cold Hands and like Jon is going to be to go and fight the others. So thank you. Thank you very much for reminding me, Mr. Craig. Okay, so there's more Lees. And then we've got a different Greg. Thanks for the content. If you get a chance, would you talk about Edmure? Why he was afraid of Tom O'Sevens? Yeah, so Tom O'Sevens made a joke about Edmure having a floppy fish, and it got popular, and everyone thought it was funny, and now everyone thinks about the floppy fish when they think of Edmure, or anyone can make that joke and embarrass Edmure at any time. And so, yeah, and if you read the scene over again, it's really funny. Tom's talking about, I just sang a song about a fish is all. So it obviously embarrassed Edmure so much that he doesn't even like singers anymore. So that's what you missed. June Stevenson says, thanks for another stream. Thanks, June. Quite welcome. I live but to serve. And is it Ludmila? Sorry, it's this. That's a hard one to say. Liudmila. In any case, thank you. And let's see. The question is, I have somewhat off-topic question after watching the Stallion Who Mounts video. I understand the theory behind Azor Ahai wanting to invade the Weirwoods and why he would want it. I also understand that he could use the power of the Weirwoods to control a comet and steer it into a moon, but why would he want that? Why break the moon? Was there knowledge that dragons would be released? Did he want dragons in the world? Yeah, the motivation for inducing a celestial apocalypse is unclear. So one possibility is that he wasn't trying to create the apocalypse, but that was an accident. He was trying to gain magic power, but did something so powerful that he sort of unmoored the world from its bearings. You know, he messed with the primal forces of nature that he didn't understand, and that is why it caused a catastrophe or something like that. And I'm going to switch my Beric picture. This one is M. Luisa Giliberti, and it's cool because you can see Ned Dane in the background there, Squire Ned. And I will remind me not to end without talking about Ned. So let's see here. Also so Talk Studios is talking about potentially Jon and Jaime as fire and ice warriors. I think Jaime's going to be fighting against the others. I think that's Jaime's most redeeming moment will come with him going north and help fighting the others, maybe even joining Jon's last hero posse. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, because that dream of Jaime wielding the burning sword with Brienne, in that dream, they were confronting the ghosts of the Kingsguard who have all the other symbolism. So that to me suggests that his destiny lies in wielding a magic sword against the others. I actually think that that's what that means. Yeah, I am hoping he's one of Jon's companions. Also, Jaime is turning into a winter symbolism guy. His gold hair is going silver. He's wearing the winter raiment of the Kingsguard, which sounds even more other-like. So, yeah. And then let's see here. But if Azor Ahai did break the moon, then the point was to gain magical power. My entire theory on the moons is that the moons were ice and fire. They governed the magical poles of ice and fire, and the moon destruction is what has upset that balance. And the cycle of the seasons in this magical world was governed by those poles of ice and fire, the two moons. And that's why the seasons are messed up, is because the moon associated with fire is the one that got hit by the comet in the past. And so the only parts of that moon that are left are like black meteor stones that are on the earth, or it's possible that like there's still a broken moon up there in the sky that we can't see because it's been turned dark, because all the fire moon symbolism, it gets turned into black things, light drinking things. There's even line about the moon being a black hole in the sky that suggests that there could be a broken moon up there that's black, that drinks the light that you can't see anymore. So that's a possibility too. But essentially, if Azor Ahai broke the moon on purpose, it was to gain magical power. I mean, that's the goal of what he's doing here. So possibly he thought that by bringing meteors down to the earth, that then he could possess that magic of the moon directly, something like that. Always horny, ever and always, of course. Never not horny. First live chat for me. Oh, cool. Dispense your content over the holidays. Thank you so much. Quite welcome. We're here every Sunday. So ASMR, dude, ASMR is weird. Tell me what stoner ASMR means. I'm still thinking about that comment. Is that just like where I mic up the bong and like you hear the lighter and then like the bong hit and like in detail and you hear the bubbling? And I could do that. Maybe I could do that. Maybe I shouldn't dismiss it. Oh no, we're going to do Jaime. Don't worry. We're going to do Jaime on one of these Sunday streams, and we're going to break all this down for sure. Probably pretty soon, too. So, all right. I have said many times that Azor Ahai is from the Great Empire of the Dawn, right? And that House Dane is the proof of that. House Dane is this weird anomaly. They have Valyrian looks. 3 or 4 members of their houses have different parts of Valyrian looks, including young Ned Dane, Darkstar, Shardane has purple eyes. And they are first men, so they shouldn't have any business having Valyrian looks. They don't look like other first men. And they have this magic sword that doesn't belong in Dawn Age Westeros at all. It's just as advanced as a Valyrian steel sword is, Dawn. Except for the color is wrong. But other than that, like, there's no reason why there should be a prototype of Valyrian steel floating around in Dawn Age Westeros. So yes, this is what's up with that Dane hair. This is what's up with them. The Great Empire of the Dawn is the name of the ancient Ahai people. Ever since the first book, there's been hints that dragons come from Ahai, that before the Valyrians learned how to tame dragons, they learned from Ahai. People from the Shadowland taught them their arts before departing from the Annals, Septon Bar says. So we've known that Valeria's ancestors, or at least their dragon knowledge, comes from Ahai. I put together a bunch of clues and figured out that it's this thing also referred to as the Great Empire of the Dawn. And the main clue is the fused stone. They came to Old Town and built a fused stone fortress in the Dawn Age. And then the High Tower of Old Town is built on top of it, which is one of the ways that we can know that the fused stone fortress is super duper old. And when I say fused stone, of course, I'm talking about the black stone that can only be made with dragon fire and sorcery. That's what Dragonstone is made out of. The Valyrian roads are made out of fused stone. Basically, you use the dragon fire to melt stone, and then you use fire sorcery to harden it in, shape it into a shape, and then freeze it into place. And then it's seamless, perfect stone, kind of like concrete, but it's invincible. So that's fused stone. We find it in Old Town. That's one of the ways we know that Dragon Lords existed before Valyria, and there's other clues that tie them back to the Great Empire of the Dawn. By the way, I've got a video about it called Great Empire of the Dawn, Ancient Dragon Lords from Ahai. It's my most popular video, so check that out for the whole theory. But the point is that I've been saying that the High Towers and the Danes are the descendants of these Great Empire of the Dawn people for years. And so here's Beric, very clear Azor Ahai person, and he's engaged to a Dane. So this is a clue that the Danes are tied into all this Azor Ahai business. Then his squire, who's kind of like a son figure essentially, is also a Dane, and he's named Ned Dane, which means he's named after a Stark. And of course, in the Blood of the Other Stark That Brings the Dawn episode and the Elric Shadow Chaser episode, I showed you how one of the 5 names of Azor Ahai is Eldric Shadow Chaser, which is taken directly from Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melniboné, who is a very Azor Ahai, Bloodraven type of figure. He's an albino with a black sword. And he's from a dragon riding empire that's very like Valyria, and all this great stuff. I'm going to do a whole Elric episode, so don't let me get started on Elric. I'm actually listening to an Elric audiobook right now, so it's very much in my head. But what were we talking about? So Eldric Shadow Chaser is one of the 5 names given of Azor Ahai. And yes, Goose bit me today. I told you he's having a day, man. He bit my hand. He's pissed off. Anyways, I did go in there wearing a beanie, though. And sometimes birds get really upset if you have headgear on your head. So Eldric Shadow Chaser is one of the names of Azor Ahai. But the thing is that name Eldric is echoed in House Dane and House Stark over and over. There's Elrics, Edrics, Eldrics, all these naming variants. And Eddard is actually a variant of Elric as well. Because young Ned Dane, his nickname is Ned, his actual name is Edric. So if Edric can become Ned, then that ties that into that Elric naming tree. So basically, anybody named Elric or Edric, we should think of as an Azor Ahai or a Last Hero figure because of Eldric Shadow Chaser. So here you have Beric Dondarrion, an obvious Azor Ahai figure, and his squire is named Edric, which is, again, a synonym for Eldric Shadow Chaser, who is an Azor Ahai person, but he's nicknamed Ned because, of course, the Last Hero probably was a Stark or had something to do with the Starks. And so essentially what I've found is that when you look at all the Last Hero figures, you find ties to both House Dane and House Stark. And Ned Dane is like the epicenter of that. He's named after a Stark. He is a Dane. So he's a last hero figure, or a son of a last hero figure, son of Azor Ahai. Remember, Azor Ahai and the last hero could be a father-son thing. We don't know how that all shakes out. Uncle-nephew thing, anything like that. And so we, like I said, Ned sends out Beric as if Beric is a servant of Ned Stark. And then his squire is a Dane named after a Stark. So it just ties all the Stark and Dane stuff to the last hero Azor Ahai mythology, which is like big surprise, right? Of course. It's not a surprise. It's just a confirmation, really. Sean O'Donnell says, Dawn is like Excalibur, and you must have Dane, Pendragon, Great Empire of the Dawn, Valyrian blood to wield it, giving Jon the ability to use and claim it. Yeah, so Jon and Dany are both part Dane by way of Diana Dane, who married Egg, and their kids had incest for several generations. So Dany is actually as much as half or quarter Dane, I believe it is, and Jon would be like an eighth Dane. So it's not a ton, but they do have some. And if you think about Dane as Great Empire of the Dawn blood, well, then the Targaryen stuff counts too. So I'm still not sure how much George means. Like with Jon and Dany's blood lineage, it's interesting. They're both got Blackwood and Dane blood. And I want to make a theory out of that so bad. Something like the Blackwood Greenseer blood is what helped Dany hatch the dragons, maybe. Or, like I said, the Dane blood that Jon has or Dany has will make them heirs of Dawn. If enough Danes die, Ned Dane dies, then it's like, well, somebody's got to wield it, right? So let's see here. I should perch one bird on each one. These are foam. They won't support. The birds also like to tear these up. If Goose sees it, he'll attack it. Let me make sure I got all the PayPals. Looks like I did. Oh, no, Linda's got one. Happy 2021. That's it. Oh, Maria Lind. Thanks. Thanks, Maria. Appreciate that. All right, so I'm caught up here. And let's see. I'm trying to think. I will go ahead and put out last call for questions while I consider if there's any symbolism about Beric that I haven't explained. We got the Grove of Ash stuff. We got all the lightning, all the broken sword stuff. It's resurrected in an ash tree. Let's see. Got the Ned Stark stuff. Passing the flame of life to Cat. Got the Dundar thing. Let's see. Yeah, and even so the idea that Azor Ahai goes into the Weirwood net, and this has the side effect of creating the others. Well, the others are kind of like lightning. They strike like lightning. They move like lightning. Lightning is blue and purple. So it makes a good symbol for the sort of blue fire of the others. So Beric being the Lightning Lord is interesting because it's also another clue about when Azor Ahai goes into the Weirwood net, that creates the others. It ends up in, the lightning strikes then come to the land. Has that side effect. Also, Beric is called Wisp of the Woods, which makes him kind of like a tree ghost. And that just sort of complements the whole idea of him being in a Weirwood cave. But nothing too brilliant, but it's interesting. Baked bread with Becca. Looks like I might have missed your super chat. If it was from a while ago, then just ask the question again and tag me. Because I might not be able to find it if it's that far back. And Maud Mary, I'll look for your PayPal in a second. Lefrenic says, if Dany turns out to be Ashara's daughter, oh, she's not though. Isn't this ultimately a good thing? It offers her a different path than of fire and ice. No, she's not. I love you guys, but I don't think those theories have any possibility. I think Dany is just who we think she is, and Jon is RLJ, and you're not going to convince me of anything else being possible unless it happens on the page. I've looked into those theories, and I just don't think there's anything there. So with respect, symbolism wise, yeah, sure. Dane symbolism is great. But it's so similar to Targaryen symbolism anyway, when you look at the Great Empire of the Dawn stuff. So, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't get with it. I can't. Let's see here. Let me get Maud Mary's PayPal. There's a couple minute delay, Maud Mary, so it could be that just hasn't come through yet. Oh, wait, no, here it is. Oh, it just says Happy New Year. There you go. Thank you, Mary. It was right at the top. There you go. Broken sword symbolism outside of A Song of Ice and Fire. Okay, that is a good question. I don't know. I haven't researched it. There's so much of it in A Song of Ice and Fire, so I hadn't bothered to think if it comes from somewhere else. I'm really not sure. It's definitely Lord of the Rings. That's probably where it comes from. You know, Narsil, Aragorn's sword, famously the sword that was broken. It was broken against Sauron, then was reforged and used, you know, in that holy war. So that's definitely one. There might be some. There's definitely some sword reforging in Norse mythology. Yes, it is. There is a sword that's broken and reforged. Which one is that? That's not Brander. That's a different one. And it ties into a dragon slaying myth as well. It's been a long time since I looked at it. Maybe if somebody knows the one I'm thinking of. But that's probably the original place that it came from. Yeah, but definitely there's specific references to the Lord of the Rings broken swords. And that's the thing, is that a lot of the Dane Great Empire of the Dawn stuff ties into Numenor and Lord of the Rings lore. So definitely check out the Stark That Brings the Dawn, Blood of the Other episode for all that Numenor, Lord of the Rings, broken sword shit. Let's see. Rosie says, put it up on the screen. Do you think the phonetic similarity between Azor and other hints at a possible link between the two? Maybe Azor was a house name, the Azores, which became others. I had never thought of that. But the Azor Islands are rumored to be part of Atlantis, maybe, kind of, sort of, perhaps. So there's that. No, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I don't know. That seems like a little bit of a stretch, but possible. I think the others are named because literally the concept of otherization is what George wanted to talk about mostly. Excalibur was reforged. That's cool. And let's see. All right. Well, and Annie likes the idea. So there you go. But the thing is, we've already got that theory anyway. So whether it is or it isn't, it would only be sort of fitting along with other evidence that we have. So there's that. Sigurd, that's it. Yeah, he uses a broken sword to try to kill Fafnir. And then it's reforged and given to like Sigurd's grandchild or something like that. Yeah, that's the one. What's the sword though? Let me look it up. Balmung. That sounds like Balrog, kind of, or Glaurung. Yeah. Balmung. Another one. It's called Nothung. Oh, Graham. No, Graham. Okay, yeah. So those are other names for Graham, but Graham is the main name. Yeah, okay, that's the one I was thinking of, Graham, which means wrath. Yeah, very cool. So Graham was broken by Odin. And then it was later, let's see, the two halves were kept for a future son. Oh, who is Sigurd? Oh, so Sigurd gets the reforged one. That's what happens. Yeah. So Odin Okay, I don't want to stumble my way through all this mythology, but this is where it comes from. So yeah, look up Graham and Odin, and it also involves the Barnstalker tree, which has to do with Bran's name, and that is probably the origin of the broken sword stuff. Yes. Yep. Yeah, it's okay, Sean O'Donnell. Clearly, I'm not sure about the stories exactly either, but we're barking up the right tree at least. So there we go. Yeah, there's also Ring Hill. That's another great sword's name. Yeah, it's a girl's name, and it was a really hard to pronounce name, so I skipped it. Norse mythology, Norse pronunciations are the worst too. They're so hard. All right, so Talk Studios is adding that more localized motif is the sword that has been broken and must be reforged, commonly found in Northern Europe. Such a sword symbolizes the initial defeat and loss of honor of its wielder. Ah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And that sort of fits with the whole idea of the last hero losing and have to sort of reform, get help from the children. And it also could imply that, Azor Ahai is responsible for the demons that he maybe fights against later or something like that. So, all right, guys, I think that's going to about do it for Beric. If you want more Beric, you can look on the Weirwood Compendium and the Sacred Order of Green Zombies series. It looks like I got all the PayPals and super chats. So there you go, right at 2 hours. And I will probably have my video out about the old ones before next Sunday. It depends on what comes up this week, though. It'll be close. So I'll either see you with the video before next Sunday, or I'll see you next Sunday with a live stream. And thank you for hanging out at Dave's Zoo here today. Happy New Year, everyone.